Good, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Gordon Causey coming to you live and scripted as always. And as always, here is Candy the Wonder Pup, who is glomming all over me for a treat. I want to apologize. I wanted to start this video at 10 p.m. or 10:15 p.m. And we had a big Thanksgiving feed. And as you probably know, after a big meal, you get tired. Well, that's what happened to me. If I'm looking a little tired, there's a reason. After having our big feed and a nice big slice of apple pie with ice cream on top, I crashed out with the thought, with the intention that, okay, I'll get up in 2-3 hours and I'll do my video. And to quote that old commercial from many years ago, I went down and I couldn't get back up. So here it is now. It is the 14th of October. This is Thanksgiving Monday here in Canada, and I have another big feed coming tonight. So after my video, I'll be crashing back out. And so if I look a little tired, you know why. But Candy doesn't care. Candy's never tired. And Candy knows what I have in my pocket for her, because this is the way all of my videos start. So shake a paw, lay down, speak. Good, come on up. That's my dog. Candy the Wonder Pup, Border Collie, 4.5-year-old pup, although she's still full of puppy energy. I picked up a viewer. I apologize. Maybe that's going to be Danny. I think there may be some new people watching this video, so I don't want to do too much preamble. I want to get right into the major news that's dominating the Canadian political scene, and that's with respect to Justin Trudeau and the extremely good, strong possibility that he could be gone in relatively short order, which will rob the Canadians of a chance. We may be robbed of the chance to send Justin Trudeau packing at the polls. I've spoken about this a number of times, most recently twice, with the two recent by-elections, the one in Trinity St. Paul riding in Toronto a month or so ago, and then there was the more recent by-election that took place in downtown Montreal, basically, West Island, the eastern part of West Island. I'm not going to go down that road again, but two seats that were considered liberal strongholds, and they lost both of them. These were supposed to be what they consider to be safe liberal seats, and it's looking like in the coming election there is probably not a very safe liberal seats are very few and far between. So after those two by-election losses, after each one, I speculated on the potential for there to be something that you would call a caucus revolt. And that's where the sitting members of the Liberal Party do their darndest to force or to push Justin Trudeau out of the leadership, to force him to resign. The thing that I have always noted is actually they cannot force Justin Trudeau out. There is no mechanism. There is no mechanism within the Liberal Party constitution to force Justin Trudeau to abdicate his role as leader of the party. Eat Me is here, and he's commenting and calling me a night owl. Well, not entirely, but yes, if you only just came on, I had scheduled this for 10:15 p.m., but happy Thanksgiving. And you know what happens to you after a big meal. I was out. So what is happening, and let me deal with that. What is happening right now is that Justin Trudeau was in Southeast Asia. I think he was in Laos and a few other places. There's an economic conference that was taking place in the Far East. Justin Trudeau was there. The cat was away. And so what happened was the Liberal caucus was meeting with an absence of the prime minister, there would have been representatives from what is called the PMO, the prime minister's office, there at that caucus meeting. But the story is that he was kicked out, that the PMO staffers, that these individuals who work in the prime minister's office were kicked out. And then they convened a number of MPs, a number of Liberal MPs, then convened a special secret caucus to talk about how to best go about getting Justin Trudeau to resign the leadership of the party. And not much is being said publicly, except that in articles you'll see in CBC, CTV, and Global, that they're urging the prime minister to take into consideration the welfare of the party as a whole, which I don't think Trudeau regards himself as the Liberal Party. I think, I am the Liberal Party. That's my perspective. That's what I think Justin Trudeau is saying. I am the Liberal Party. And so he thinks the two are linked. But if you're a sitting member, even in a safe, what used to be a safe seat in Montreal, downtown Toronto, other parts of the Maritimes. I mean, there's a lot of safe, what used to be regarded as safe Liberal seats, and these individuals, I'm sure, like their job in terms of benefits and salary and perks and everything that comes with being a sitting member of Parliament. You got to be making $250,000 salary with all the benefits and the frequent travel. 2 residences in your home riding and an apartment or a condo in Ottawa. It's a sweet life, and they're going to lose the upcoming election when the next election is called. But here's the difficulty. They can ask Trudeau to leave, they can push, they can beg, they can implore, but ultimately the decision rests with him. And as I've said in previous videos, he could get his back up. And like Jordan, whatever the guy's name was in that Stratton, or whatever the name, the Wolf of Wall Street, you may remember that Leonardo DiCaprio movie about a guy who was hawking penny stocks. And the SEC wanted to tried to shut him down, and eventually did. But after making a deal with the SEC where he said he would vacate so that his firm could stay in business, he gave a farewell speech and said, "I ain't going. I ain't leaving." Trudeau could do the same. Trudeau could get his back up and say, "I ain't leaving. I'm staying." And there is, in point of fact, no mechanism within the Liberal Party constitution to allow the MPs to force him out. And the MPs who are these 20 to 30 Liberal MPs, there are currently sitting in the House of Commons, there are 153 Liberal MPs, and 20 to 30 have, from what I understand, put their signature to a piece of paper and are committed to doing whatever they can to push Justin Trudeau out. And this is where, why only 20 to 30, you might ask? Why isn't it half? Why isn't it more than half? Well, the Prime Minister's office, the Office of Prime Minister of Canada, has an enormous amount of power. One of the things that Justin Trudeau can do, before someone can run as a Liberal candidate in any given riding in Canada, is Justin Trudeau has to sign as leader of the party, he has to sign what are called their nomination papers. So Justin Trudeau, if Bob Smith running for the Liberal Party in Mississauga, Canada, if his name is on this letter calling on Trudeau to resign, Trudeau could say to Bob Smith and to all the other signatories of that letter, he could say, "I'm not signing your nomination papers." And Trudeau could appoint candidates to run in those respective ridings. Likewise, Trudeau, as long as the government is still standing, as long as the government is still sitting, Trudeau could take away any of their additional little parliamentary responsibilities. They may be the chair of a particular committee or little jobs of that nature. They could be a deputy minister. They could be an advisor to the ministry of this, that, or the other. And with those little extra jobs, they get a top up, they get extra money on top of their MP salary, their member of parliament salary. So Trudeau could get vindictive on them and deny them the right to run in the forthcoming election whenever it happens. And he could take away their perks in the meantime until that election comes. And so it makes things incredibly difficult for, that's the reason why it might be only 30 or so Liberal MPs and why 120 or so are still at least publicly supporting Justin Trudeau as leader of the Liberal Party. You have to remember, Canadians, we do not elect the Prime Minister of Canada directly. If you've ever voted, and I hope you have, but if you haven't, there are lots of people who don't. When we have a federal election in this country, we might get 60% or so of the population voting. 40% of people typically don't vote. But if you have voted, unless you live in the riding of what's called Montreal-Papineau, where Trudeau is the MP, then you'll have a Liberal candidate, a Conservative, an NDP, a Green, a PPC. You'll have to pick between one of those names, and Justin Trudeau wasn't one of those names. If you want, most people, my belief, and I think most would back this up, most people don't tend to vote nationally. They vote based on the leader. And so they vote for the Liberal candidate, even though whether they like or dislike the person, because they want the leader of the party to win. So while people can't vote directly for Justin Trudeau, Pierre Poilievre, Jagmeet Singh, Elizabeth May, or whoever it is leading the Green Party, they're in a bit of a mess. Or if you live in Quebec, you can throw in the Bloc Québécois. And then, of course, there's Maxime Bernier of the People's Party of Canada. Let me read what's being written. I see I have 9 people watching. I'm not the only night owl. Eat me. And Eat Me, as I recall, he's a Montrealer, a Montrealer. So let me read what's being written. He's saying that that narcissist won't leave. And this was playing around there for a second. Sorry. He writes, that narcissist won't leave. They will have to kick him out, kicking and screaming, and do as much damage as possible before he is voted out. If I had to wager, that's what I think the likely outcome is. I think the most likely outcome is that Justin Trudeau will get his backup. I don't think he's going to publicly state, I ain't leaving. He's going to, our government is going to continue to do the work that Canadians expect of us and blah, blah, blah. And he'll stick to his political talking points. He's not going to say, I ain't leaving. But that will be the upshoot of it. He is going to get his back up. That's my guess. That is my guess. And the reason why these 20 to 30 Liberal MPs are having to be so secretive is they have to plan what happens if Trudeau won't sign our nomination papers and we're not allowed to run in the next election. And they're likely communicating with people outside of the sitting members. They're likely talking to campaign donors. They're likely talking to the bureaucracy. They're likely, their tentacles will extend beyond just the House of Commons into other apparatuses within the party. And they'll be looking for support. And there's potential that any or all of them may run as independents, hoping that politicians have egos. And they think that the reason they won a particular seat is because they themselves are popular in Calgary, in Edmonton, in Toronto, in Halifax, in Montreal, in Vancouver. They think that their constituents voted them to represent the riding in the House of Commons, whereas I would argue typically the vast majority of people are not voting for their local candidate. In ridings that are held by Liberal members, most people voting and marking their X next to a Liberal candidate didn't have a great affinity for that specific candidate. Rather, they wanted, in 2015, 2019, 2021, they wanted Justin Trudeau to be, they saw Justin Trudeau as the best choice for Prime Minister over Eric O'Toole, Jagmeet Singh, Elizabeth May, and the other party leaders. Let me catch up, because I now have Oilers fan 1982 here. My wife and I voted for the BC Conservatives. Looks like our writing is leading. We just need a federal election ASAP. Obviously, you must have voted in a advanced poll, because the BC election, which is I like the BC election because it's binary. It's the NDP and the Conservatives, and that's it. There is the Green Party, which is getting, I think, 10 or so percent, at least in terms of the polling. But they're only expected to elect maybe 1 or 2, perhaps 3 seats. In the BC provincial election, it's basically a 2-horse race between the Conservatives and the NDP. The Liberal Party in BC is actually something of a conservative party. They're not nearly as far left as the NDP, and so the Liberals basically suspended their campaign, withdrew their candidates, and have the leader of the BC Liberal Party has publicly endorsed the Conservative individual running to be premier, which is startling. And you have to understand, people could say, wait a minute, why would a Liberal endorse a Conservative? You have to understand that the Liberal Party of British Columbia has no affinity, no affiliation whatsoever with the Liberal Party of Canada. They both have the name Liberal on them, but they're 2 entirely separate, different parties. In Quebec, for the longest time, there was no Conservative Party with any particular, it had 0 footprint. And so it was basically the binary choice in Quebec was the Parti Québécois, separatist, against the Liberal Party, and the Liberal Party was considered to be the more conservative party of the 2. You'll remember perhaps that famously Jean Charest, who had been a cabinet minister in the federal Conservative Party, then left federal politics, and he became the leader of the Quebec Liberal Party. So you had a Conservative becoming leader of a Liberal Party, and likewise, the Liberal Party of Quebec has no connection, no affiliation. They just share the name Liberal, but they're 2 completely separate organizations. Let me catch up on what's being written. I'm not surprised I'm getting BC people out here now, because at BC the time is somewhat reasonable. It's 3 hours earlier. Right now it's the Monday, the 14th, Easter. Thanksgiving Monday here in where I am, which is southeastern Ontario, Northumberland County. Our riding, the riding that I live in the federal election, is changing. Eat Me is writing, good for you, both Oilers fan. Eby has got to go. Eby is the current and sitting NDP premier of British Columbia. And that race, the last I looked at the polling numbers and the prognostications coming from the political talking heads, is that it's something of a horse race. And my guess is that's probably the case. I have James Meacher is hoping that BC votes right next Saturday. We will know. And Eat Me says something about the poodle, and I don't know who the poodle is. Is that Eby? or Eby, or however it is you pronounce his name. I think it's spelled Eby, not Ebe, but whatever the case, or Ebe. Oh, the poodle remark was with respect to Jean Charest, who also tried to resurrect his federal political career when Pierre Poilievre replaced Aaron O'Toole in the leadership race that followed. Jean Charest was running against Pierre Poilievre. He didn't have a hope in hell. James Meacher said I said his name right. I get lucky every now and again. So is Trudeau going to go? It's an open question. I tend to agree with Eat Me, who had said that narcissist, that self-loving, loves his photo ops. I call him Prime Minister Selfie. I don't think he's going to go either, and he doesn't have to. There is no, again, just sorry to be repetitive, but there's no mechanism to actually force him out. It's not like they can have a vote around the caucus table. Our system works, for good, bad, or otherwise. It's just the way it is. After an election is held, whether it's a liberal or conservatives, whether the liberals or the conservatives win, the leader of the party with the most seats in the House of Commons forms the government. And from that moment, the Liberal Party or the Conservative, if they win, the parties themselves don't have a mechanism to remove the leader. Gotta blow my nose. Trudeau stinks. But the Liberal Party can't force him out. After an election, if the Liberals lose the election, any election, and fail to form the government, then automatically there's what is called a leadership review, and all the card-carrying members of the Liberal Party then get to vote on, do you want the leader to stay or do you want him to go? And typically what happens with both the Liberals and the Conservatives is after a federal election is held, whoever wins, they become prime minister, and the loser then resigns. And we've seen that going back to Stéphane Dion and Paul Martin. Paul Martin was prime minister, took over from Chrétien, and then he ran an election and he won. He won a minority, but in the following election, after when Prime Minister Paul Martin was running as the Liberal leader of a minority parliament, when he ran for re-election, he lost. He immediately resigned. He was gone. So the no leadership review because he's resigning. Then Stéphane Dion stepped in and he became the leader of the Liberal Party. And in the subsequent election, he lost to Stephen Harper. And in the immediate wake of that election, he resigned. That's the standard. And then after Stéphane Dion stepped down, they elected Michael Ignatieff to be their leader, the Liberal Party leader. And Stephen Harper ran an election against him and won. And so immediately after that election, Michael Ignatieff resigned, no leadership review. Then we get to Justin Trudeau. He became the next leader. We had an election in 2015. Trudeau won that election. Stephen Harper lost. And so had Stephen Harper wanted to stay on as leader of the Conservative Party, and I wish he had, but he resigned. And so there was no leadership review. If Stephen Harper had wanted to stay, every card-carrying member of the Conservative Party would have voted on, do we keep Stephen Harper as leader or no? It's a yes or no. Do you want to keep him? And typically leaders of a federal party like the Liberals or Conservatives in a leadership review, they have to get, typically it's considered 2/3. They got to get up in and around 70% of the vote of party members to consider themselves as having a strong hold on the leadership of the party. If you get up to, if there are a third of party members who do not endorse your leadership, that makes it tenuous. And famously, Joe Clark, who had won the 1979 federal election, he wanted to stay on. And so they had the leadership review, and he came in right around 66, 67%. He was kind of right on the bubble. And so he could have stayed on. He didn't have to call for a leadership convention. But given that a third of the party, roughly a third of the party, did not endorse his leadership, he decided to call a leadership convention, a leadership race, and he ran, but he lost to Brian Mulroney. So let me catch up on what's being written by Oilers fan. EB has done nothing for BC, just crime is up, hasn't done anything about drug epidemic. Emergency rooms get shut down because there's not enough doctors. And he's saying that Oilers fan likes conservative leader John Rustad's that he believes he has a plan. We shall see. I mean, it all depends who wins that election, and if the Conservatives do win, we'll see. I think there's a tendency among Canadians to think of politics as something of a panacea, a cure-all for all of the nation's or your individual province's ills. And as we so often find, the needle moves a little in one direction or the other, but the problems persist because we live in a complicated world. And Canada is a tiny player in the world, on the world stage. And we're a tiny island that is affected by storms beyond our control. And I think ultimately, when it comes to Justin Trudeau, whether he steps aside or not, I think Canadians and people all around the world, especially the Western developed world, that we are in for challenging times going forward because of an agenda, a globalist agenda, that's being pushed by the UN, by organizations like the World Economic Forum, by more clandestine organizations like the Council on Foreign Relations, the Club of Rome, the Bilderbergers. There are all kinds of these little clandestine, little globalist groups that are populated by individuals who have enormous wealth, power, and influence. They control our media, and they know how to push public opinion, or enough of it, to get people to do their bidding. Think about what happened in the COVID era, and when the people supported watching our Constitution and Charter of Rights and Freedoms Justin Trudeau wiped his backside with it. And Eat Me's writing that here's a biblical reference, if ever you wanted one. Trudeau is the Canadian golden calf. The more he gets votes, the more this country slips into evil. He might be the whore of Babylon after all. Getting right into the book of going all the way from Exodus, the golden calf, to Revelation. From the second book of the Bible to the last, from Exodus to Revelation. The whore of Babylon is in Revelation. And that's part of the reason I do these videos. Here I am, the living, I've said it before, I'll say it again, because I might have some new viewers on this wondering, is Trudeau going to go? And I'll just reiterate the point. I don't know. I would suspect not. And even if he were to go, even if Trudeau was to be forced out, there's the potential that an election could be called within weeks, within a month or two. All that has to happen is for there to be a tabling of a motion of no confidence. So we've had two already that have been tabled by Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives. They put forth a motion calling on the Parliament of Canada to vote no confidence, to say that we have this House, the House of Commons, does not have confidence in Justin Trudeau's Liberal Party to lead the government. And if that motion had passed, we would have been thrust into an election. However, the Bloc Québécois or the NDP, I haven't followed the vote specifically. I've just followed it enough to see that the motion, both of them, were defeated. Whether the Liberals got the votes they needed from the NDP or the Bloc Québécois or both, it doesn't matter. They got the votes, and so the motion was defeated, and so Parliament continues. Justin Trudeau stays on as Prime Minister. But if another motion of no confidence comes, and if the Bloc Québécois and NDP, they both have to join with the Conservatives. The Conservatives have about 100, I think it's 119 seats. The Liberals have 153. The NDP has, I'm going to give you the numbers. I've got them on a tab from the party standings from marcommons.ca. So the Bloc has 33 and the NDP has 25. So you need 170 votes. You need 170 votes to pass, to win a vote in the House of Commons. And so 153, the Liberals need 17 more votes than what they have in their own party. So if they can get either the Bloc Québécois or the NDP to side with them, then they win the vote. And we could be weeks, a month or two away from an election. And if Trudeau steps down, it takes a while to replace a political leader. It's not, you know, I imagine they can rush it through, have online voting and such, and get it done in a few short weeks. But if you're facing the prospect of an election in a month, that doesn't give a leader any time to establish him or herself as the leader of the party. And it's also going to, for the Liberals, the NDP, and obviously the Conservatives, they already smell blood in the water. They see that Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party as a whole, it's a sinking ship. And they're not going to send life rafts, and you know they don't want to help them. They want the Liberal Party to sink. And so this is something that should have been done last year. Or before that. The Liberal Party, these MPs, these 20 to 30 MPs who are finally finding their cojones and are doing their best to push Justin Trudeau out, they've waited until the 11th hour. They've waited, I would say they've waited past midnight. They've waited too long. And so going to catch up on what's being said. John 5 is here saying good evening, and he says, what, really? A vote before spring? Possibly, if there is a vote of no confidence. If there's a vote of no confidence, a motion of no confidence is put forward, and if the Bloc Québécois and the NDP, if both of them join with the Conservatives, that will give the Conservatives, they have 119 seats, that will give them the 170 votes they need, and then the government falls. And then what would happen is the Governor General would then call an election. It would probably be in about a month. So let's say this happens on the 15th. I don't think there's a vote scheduled in the House of Commons on Tuesday, but just operating under the assumption that there was and the government fell. In that instance, we would be going to the polls in about a month away. We were November 14th, 15th, somewhere in and around there. So the other way an election can be called is if Trudeau himself, and this is a possibility, Trudeau himself could go to the Governor General and ask, I think it's a her now. I'm having trouble keeping up because we've had so many. We had Payette. Before that, we had Johnston, and I don't even know who it is now, but Trudeau could go to the Governor General and ask the Governor General to dissolve Parliament for the purpose of having an election. He could do that next week. And then basically, what's the Liberal Party to do? They haven't got time to replace him, and he gets to sink the Liberal ship. And then the last possibility is that Trudeau can hang on until September of 2025, and an election would be held in sometime in September of 2025. Parliament is going to be dissolved in any case. If nothing happens between now and then, if we get to September of 2025, then Parliament basically expires and is dissolved, and then we have an election, and Canadians would be voting October nationwide of next year. So let me see what is being written. John goes on to say, the longer the wait, the harder the crash. Yeah, the Liberal Party is sinking, and they just keep going lower and lower. They are right now, the last I saw in terms of the polling numbers, which I do trust by and large. I don't think they're perfect, but I think they serve a good barometer. They're a good indication, and I think they give more importantly, I think they give a picture of the trend. Are the Liberals trending down, up, or are they holding steady? Well, the Liberals just keep going lower and lower and lower. And right now they're in a statistical tie with the NDP. So the longer the wait, the harder the crash. The trend for the Liberal Party is down, down, down. So the longer they wait, the worse it could get. I think when they lost Trinity St. Paul, that Toronto by-election, that was a wake-up call. But not as big a wake-up call as when they lost a West Island Montreal riding, this Laval, Aymar Verdun, I think is the name of the riding. When they lost that one, that was, holy cow, we can't even hold a West Island Montreal riding. The Trinity St. Paul riding is downtown Toronto, but it's outside of the downtown core. I still think the very downtown core of Toronto, and I do think Westmount, the western part of West Island, Montreal, I still think they're safe for the Liberals, barely. Like they'll probably manage 40 or so percent, and the Conservatives would probably get up in around the high 30s. But I still think the Liberals will win the downtown Toronto ridings. When I mean downtown, I'm talking Yonge and Dundas, from Front to Yonge, from, well, I don't know, Jarvis to University, or maybe Bathurst. They'll win the downtown Toronto ridings, but precious little else. So James Meacher is writing, yeah, likely an election before October 2025. Who's to say? I mean, I think it's 50-50. I'm gonna waffle. I'm gonna say it's 50-50 that we'll have an election before then. But there is an argument to be said what Meacher's saying, that it's likely that we'll have an election beforehand, because Trudeau could go to the Governor General and kind of cut the legs out of those trying to remove him in the leadership, narcissistically believing that he can, rescue himself, that he can make Canadians fall in love with him, or at least enough Canadians to keep him in his job. I think it's possible he could even lose his own riding of Papineau if he doesn't make the wise decision. Politically, the wise thing for him to do would be to sail off into the sunset, to do what that Jacinda, that horse-faced woman from New Zealand did, and just sail off into the sunset, take your WEF cash and go live someplace where you can walk down the street without being screamed at and called a puke and all manner of other things. Oilers fan is writing, oh wait, I'll read Eat Me before that. Eat Me has written, Jugmeat said it. He ripped the agreement. He will probably be voted out by his own constituents, which is what he deserves. Trudeau will probably, we got the comments coming in so fast I can't keep up. Probably propagate and go hide under King's skirt. And now Oilers fan is writing that Pierre Poilievre will put Canada first, and it starts by axing the carbon tax, build the homes, keep jobs in Canada, keep repeat offenders in jail, and not bail, make the cost of living more affordable. Oilers fan, you sound like a Conservative Party consultant, a communications director. Those will be Pierre Poilievre's talking points. Absolutely. Axing the tax, build the homes, keep jobs in Canada. And these are his talking points. I have my misgivings about Pierre Poilievre. I'll be forthcoming. But they are the misgivings I have about Pierre Poilievre weigh this much. The misgivings I have about Justin Trudeau, they're massive. It's no contest. If my choices are binary and I have to choose between Pierre Poilievre and Justin Trudeau, it's Pierre Poilievre every day of the week and twice on Sunday. But I do have misgivings about him when he was running for the leadership, when Aaron O'Toole stepped down and they had the subsequent leadership race. Pierre Poilievre was giving a meet and greet, shaking hands with supporters and people coming out. He was campaigning for the leadership. And an individual came up to shake his hand, cell phone, and someone was recording it for a cell phone. So Poilievre knew that whatever he said, there's potential for it to go out in social media and go viral. So he's got to tread carefully. And the individual asked Pierre Poilievre, he said, what is your stance? What is your opinion on the UN Sustainable Development Goals? And Pierre Poilievre played ignorant. He was like, I'm not familiar with them. And that I found to be shocking. Personally, I don't believe it. Pierre Poilievre is a very intelligent individual, very astute. He's no idiot. Trudeau, Poilievre probably has an IQ punching up 130, 140. Trudeau, maybe 110, maybe 105. I mean, there's a huge difference between the intellectual capacity of Poilievre and Justin Trudeau. And for Pierre Poilievre to say that he was unfamiliar with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, no, I don't believe that. And is Pierre Poilievre owned? I think anyone in that position, leader of a national party with a chance to form the government, ultimately, I think he is beholden to individuals, to interests, to powers that are at times at counter purposes to the interests of your average Joe Canadian. So anyway, that's a long digression. Thank you to James Meacher for writing the name of the Governor General, Mary Simon, or Simo. Aboriginal, Aboriginal female or something, I think. I'm not sure. I haven't followed it that closely. The Governor General is largely a ceremonial role. They have no legislative stance. I mean, basically what happens is when a bill becomes law in Canada, it passes the House, it passes the Senate, then it gets handed to the Governor General. And once the Governor General puts pen to paper, puts their signature on it, then it becomes law. It's called royal assent, but it's ceremonial. It's, she is the representative of the king. And for a law to become law in Canada, it has to have royal assent. It has to have the approval of the crown. And because King Charles isn't going to sign everything, it's the Governor General, his representative. I have to get used to saying his, because for my entire 58 years, up until just in the past year or so, it's been her. We had Queen Elizabeth. And a little diversion. I wish we'd do away with this constitutional monarchy. I'd prefer a Republican-style system where Canadians could vote for their head of state directly, similar to an American system. But anyway, Eat Me writes that Simon, or Simon, is an Indigenous woman and has had her fair share of scandals. As I say, because the Governor General is simply a ceremonial role, perhaps should pay closer attention to it, but we don't get to vote for the governor general. That individual is appointed. The prime minister appoints the governor general. I have John 5 writing a question. What would make the NDP or Bloc vote with Conservatives? It seems unlikely, question mark. What would make them vote for there's the prospect, let's say the Liberals kick Justin Trudeau out and Mark Carney comes in as leader. Former governor of the Bank of Canada, former governor of the Bank of England, former advisor to the UN, I think to the International Monetary Fund, and resurrects Liberal fortunes sufficiently to impact the NDP's ability to win seats and the Bloc Québécois' ability to win seats. So I think there may be, the Liberals are foundering, and in the last two elections, they got up around 31, 32% of the vote. Now, looks like they'll be lucky to get 20. And so why would the NDP and Bloc Québécois support or line up with the Conservatives and vote no confidence? Because there's blood in the water, and they think their chances are best at electing members of their party with a weakened Liberal Party, with a Liberal Party that's drowning. So that is why. That's my take, my opinion. And it wouldn't be so much voting with the Conservatives as voting to get rid of the Liberals. Going to read on. John writes, a specific law. A specific law. I don't know what you're referencing with that question. Sorry about that. I don't keep up with the comments fast enough. I know when I say something, you write it right away, and then I lose the connection. Eat Me is writing that the riding in downtown Montreal, the eastern part of the West Island, and Montreal, I don't know the city that well. I've been there a number of times, but I've never spent the longest time I ever spent in Montreal was 4 or 5 days when I was 18 on March break. Back in the 1980s, would have been 1985 or thereabouts, or 1984. Long time ago. And other than that, it's just a day or two here. So I don't know the geography of Montreal that well. But I have spent time with extended family in West End, Montreal, Pointe-Claire, a couple nights. Nothing. I don't know the island extensively, but what I do know is that West Island is English, East Island is French. The further east you go, the more French it gets. The further west you go, the more English it gets. And Eat Me is from the part of the riding where Justin Trudeau lost that by-election. It wasn't him who lost, it was the Liberal candidate, but it's because of Trudeau that they lost. And the riding is La Salle, is where Eat Me lives, and the riding is called La Salle, Verdun, Ville-et-Mar. And you even get the accent aigu on the E. And Eat Me would love a Christmas election. And that sunny ways is far gone by now. You got to remember that's what he said in 2015 when he was first elected. Welcome to sunny ways. Oh my gosh, so much is being written. I got to catch up. Where are we? Let me find where I am on the chat. Love a Christmas election. Sunny ways far gone by now. John 5 writes, Jacinda, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern, or however you say it, Ardern. Okay. I had trouble listening to her, and it very difficult, not just because of her accent, the way she spoke, and her horse face, but because of the way she had complete and utter disdain for anyone who wanted to exercise simple bodily autonomy and say, no, I don't want to get injected with that. Thank you very much. Well, you have to. I can't do a Kiwi accent at all, but This idea that the state can determine what gets injected into your body. That was scary. That was Orwellian. That was Joseph Mengele style stuff. If you don't know who Joseph Mengele is, look it up. James Meacher says there was never sunny ways with Trudeau. No kidding. The man doesn't know the difference between a boy and a girl. We're people. I'm a people. James Meacher writes, Pierre is a good guy, but nobody's perfect, eh? True. But I'm not being generalistic here. I'm specifically concerned with his professed ignorance of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which put the people living alive today, kids alive today, teenagers, 20-somethings, 50, guys my age, guys older, saying, you people don't matter. What we're concerned with is about this generations to come. We've got to look after the people we're going to destroy the lives of the people living in Canada right now for some future generations that aren't even alive yet. So you have to suffer, because this computer model that we created on climate has predicted that the planet's going to be unlivable, based on the data that we put into our simulation, our computer modeled simulation. And then you'll ask, okay, these simulations, how long have you been doing them? Oh, we've been doing them for 30, 40 years. Great. Are these simulations accurate? Have they been a reliable predictive tool for telling what the planetary climate is like? Well, no, they've been completely wrong on everything, but we're sure they're right now. What do you mean? So you've done computer modeling going back 30, 40 years? Yeah. And all the predictions have been wrong? Yeah. So why do you think they're going to be right now? Well, because whatever. Climate science is not science. Climate science is predictive modeling based on computers that has proven to be incredibly flawed and unreliable. You can't trust it. In 2000, climatologists famously said in the press that in a few short years, children will not know what snow is. And we've had these predictions in the 1970s, early 1980s. They were predicting an impending ice age. The global climate patterns were pointing us toward an ice age. Then came the fear mongering over acid rain in the ozone layer, and telling everyone to rub chemicals into your skin because that'll protect you, because we humans, we've destroyed the ozone layer and now the sun is worse than it was. And so just rub these chemicals into your body and that'll protect you. And now, man, oh man, this world is messed up. Eat Me writes, with respect to the Governor General, that he doesn't get it. She is Aboriginal and has no fiality. I hate that word. No, fiality. I can't even think of how to define it. To the king. Why was she even appointed? It's a political appointment. It's ceremonial. It's virtue signaling. Look, I used to joke and say that to get a job in Canada with the federal government, you now have to be an Aboriginal female disabled with a homosexual orientation. You got to tick off all the DEI boxes now to get any, prominent position with major corporations or with government institutions. I mean, I'm toast. I'm old, 58, white, Caucasian, whatever, male, straight, and I'm a professing Christian. So in terms of cancel culture, I tick off basically every box on shut up and sit down boomer, even though I'm not a boomer. I just missed it. I'm Gen X. Anyway, Oilers fan says, There is no better party to run this country. I feel and believe conservatives have a better platform, even though all parties are corrupt. There's definitely no saints in politics. Oh yeah, and this is my cautionary tale: is that yeah, it'll be, well, Canadians will be thrilled. 80%, 80+% of us will be thrilled to see Justin Trudeau kicked to the curb. We're Pierre Poilievre is not, he doesn't walk on water. And I'm making that reference on purpose. I just said I'm a professing Christian. I was in church today, and no power of this, the problems this world are facing are not political. The problems that this world is facing are spiritual. We've abandoned faith of any kind. And in Canada, it's almost ground zero. We have become we do what is right in our own eyes, and we say, well, you want to be you're a boy and you want to be a girl, go ahead. If you're a girl and you want to be a boy, we'll hack off your breasts, we'll slice your breasts off, and give you no life beyond your own. Boy, we're sacrificing our children to Moloch, for another biblical reference. When the Israelites joined with the practice of the Canaanites in sacrificing their children to their gods. And we have this God, this DEI God, this gender neutral, gender fluid God. And we are sacrificing our children to this God and abandoning the true God, the creator of all things, the creator of heaven and earth. And it's a distressing, humanity, we're so egotistical. It's not just Justin Trudeau who's a narcissist. We're a narcissist being. It's part of our broken, fallen human nature. We think that we can solve all the world's problems, and we cannot. We need to rely on the creator of all things. We need to humble ourselves. We need to bow down low, cover ourselves in ashes, and put on sackcloth and fast. And we've got get right with God. But it's not. I'm not naive enough to believe that would ever happen because of our broken, fallen nature. Too many people would say, well, I'm too smart for that. I'm too smart to acknowledge a superior being. I'm the superior being. And so it's not going to happen. And so regardless of who becomes prime minister after Trudeau, whether it's Pierre Poilievre, whether Mark Carney steps in, whatever happens, I mean, if I had to guess, I would say Pierre Poilievre is going to absolutely 100%, be the next prime minister of Canada. His Conservative Party will probably win 200 plus seats, have a strong majority, and for the next 4 years after that election, whenever it happens, whether it's Christmas time, whether it's in the spring, whether it's October, yeah, he wins. But the challenges facing Canada and the world, I mean, we've got the very real potential that this planet could be facing World War III in days, weeks, months ahead. And the one thing I like about Pierre Poilievre is he is absolutely 100% totally supportive of the nation state of Israel. And that alone is enough for him to earn my support. I'll have a conservative sign on my lawn, Philip Lawrence. I know it's Lawrence. I think it's Philip Lawrence is the conservative candidate and sitting MP. He's won the last 2 elections, and I'll have his sign on my lawn this year for the first time. The previous 2 elections, I was PPC. But Pierre Poilievre's absolute lion-like support of the nation state of Israel in their war against this, Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis, Islamic Jihad, basically Iran. I mean, that's what it is. It's a war between the extremist Shia Islamic state of Iran. It's not even the Iranian people. The Iranian people are in pretty much open revolt as much as they can against their own government. They want to get rid of the Ayatollahs, but they don't have, it's probably they will have to do what they did in 1979 when they got rid of the Shah of Iran, who was basically the king. They kicked the king out, and they put in power these Shia Islamic clerics, the Ayatollahs, and now they run the country. And what needs to happen in Iran is they need to institute a true form of democracy, and not the fake form they have now, where the Ayatollahs are sit above. It's a theocracy. It's an Islamic extremist Shia theocracy that happens. And Pierre Poilievre, I don't believe for a second that he knows what the SDGs are. When he made that comment that he was unfamiliar with them, that, to my opinion, that was a total lie. But publicly, and Pierre Poilievre understands what's at stake in the Middle East in this war that's between Iran and Israel. Pierre Poilievre understands it, and he is showing leadership. Trudeau's being duplicitous. He's trying to be strong for Israel to get individuals like me to support him, while at the same time, trying to say, show his empathetic nice side for, the cannon fodder, Iran's cannon fodder, the Palestinians, what are typically called the Palestinians, the residents of Gaza, the residents of the West Bank, the Hezbollah fighters, which is in Lebanon. These groups are just cannon fodder for Iran. Iran wants to wipe out the little Satan in their upside down ideology. Israel is the little Satan. They want to wipe them out, and then they want to go after the big Satan, which is the United States. And because Trudeau's left wide, we've had open door immigration going on for, especially the last few years. They're bringing in something in the neighborhood of 2 million, people into this country every year. And and a good percentage of them are Muslim. And even if you look at the college or university campuses and their protests, queers and gays for Palestine, for Iran, we've got the so-called Pride community in Canada supporting extremist Islamic Shia militantism, where it's mind-blowingly ignorant, the individuals who are supporting or are not supporting Israel. I get why it happens. It's the same reason that people got mad over someone like me not getting the COVID vaccine. I wouldn't get the COVID vaccine, and that angered members of my family and others, mostly family. They because we're family, and you're putting me in danger. I'm afraid. My emotions. That it was an emotional thing that got people to get angry at individuals like me who refused the vaccine. And it's emotion that gets people to support the Palestinian cause, because what do they see on TV? They see the images coming from Gaza. And it's horrific. War is horrible. Like we need to have a nice war. Well, if you want to have a nice war, the Hamas fighters need to come out of their tunnels. They have to go into the open field of battle. They've got to send their civilian population away and say, okay, IDF, let's go, you and us. We're, back in the Civil War of the United States, back in European warfare, back during the American Revolution, they would go out into an open field. The revolutionary forces, or the Confederate and the Union forces, or the European, the French and the British and whatever, they would go out into the open field of battle away from civilian populations, and they would have at it. But now what we have is Hamas that puts their military assets, their rocket launchers, their artillery, their equipment, they place it right near a refugee camp or near a school or near a hospital, right beside it. They've got this Nasrallah who was taken out, murdered, whatever you want to call it. I mean, he is the leader of a group, Hezbollah, that has been throwing rockets, drones, missiles into the north of Israel, has caused tens of thousands of Israelis to vacate their homes, their businesses, their schools for over a year now. And he's constantly throwing rockets at them. And then where does he put his military command post? puts it underneath a residential complex. Well, you can't hit me now. I'm hiding behind civilians. Nah, 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 nah. And Israel said, "Get out." They said, if you're living anywhere near a Hezbollah asset, get out of Dodge. Go to someplace safe because we're coming after them. And then they bombed that. They bombed that command post into oblivion and took Nasrallah out. Let me catch up and then we'll end this because it's over an hour. And I'm just going to catch up. James Meacher, she wanted the money. I'm trying to catch up, but there have been so many messages. All right, I'm going to start from Oilers fan. Trudeau should be in jail for all his corruption. I'm not going to get much disagreement from those who come to my channel. John 5, who could replace Trudeau, if any? The biggest name is Mark Carney, former governor of the Bank of Canada, former governor of the Bank of England, and an advisor of the UN. And I think he could resurrect, but I think it's too late in the game now. I think it's way too late in the game. They should have gotten rid of him last year. James Meacher is 61 and cares about the younger people. Oh yeah, we're destroying our youth. Eat Me is asking John who he sees himself voting for. I'll leave you two to that. Eat Me brings up the point of peak oil in the early 1990s. It was speculated back in the 90s that sometime around the year 2000 that the demand for oil would outstrip the available supply and that we would have oil shortages. You know, these computer modeled simulations trying to make predictions about the future always fail. And that's our basis. And now we're relying on this type of magic 8-ball forecasting to basically destroy the lives of people living now, again, for some future currently non-existent population of people. John Meacher writes that lefties would hate you, bro. You know what's funny is when you do a YouTube video like this and you're talking, I'm talking to words. I love to sit down. I like having these conversations in person. But what it allows me to do when I do it on a video like this, I can kind of take the brakes off and I just give voice to the thoughts in my head without any real concern with the way they're landing with others. So it's very honest. But at the same time, when I'm talking to people and I know their sensibilities, like tomorrow, I'll be talking to some people who I know have very, liberal sensibilities, and my messaging will change, or, my beliefs don't change, but the way I speak does. Because, I worked in marketing. I have a background in military, and before the military, I was a sales and marketing executive. And I know I have an idea on how to win hearts and minds, on how to bring people's point of view around. And you don't do it the way I'm doing it now, because all you do is get people's back up. You don't call people stupid and ignorant. That's just that just shuts off their ears. But anyway, I'm addressing, but the hardcore extreme left wing, they're beyond hope anyway. So Eat Me. Okay, one more time. I'm a chicken single fish. I'm sorry, Eat Me. My apologies. Je m'excuse. Je le ferai pas encore. I will not do it again. Eat Me. James Metcher. Lefties hate everything that doesn't fit their crazy bingo card. Good line. Oilers fan. Only person that can save the Liberals is John Christian. Oh, wait. He's probably passed on by now. James Meacher is writing cool. Okay. James Meacher is in Ottawa Center. and will be voting Conservative, but it's always Liberal or NDP here, and that makes sense because Ottawa, that's government money. And the Liberals spend, and the Conservatives at least talk about, and they do enact restraint. I would argue they never bring in enough restraint. Government just keeps growing bigger and bigger. All that happens is when the Conservatives come in, the rate at which government grows slows down. When the Liberals come in, it grows, and then the Conservatives get in, and the growth slows to glacial pace. And then the Liberals get back in, and it grows massive again. Eat Me writes, LaSalle, always vote Liberal. See the disgraced David Lemaitre, who weaseled out after the Emergency Act, aka War Act, was deemed unconstitutional during the trucker convoy. Oh man, oh man. There's a tendency on my part to want to let go of the COVID era myself, but at the same time I can't, because the hardest part of the COVID era is knowing that there's probably about 25% of the Canadian population who wants to live under a fascist system and just loves to obey rules, no matter how stupid and ignorant and dangerous they are. Take the shot, or you cannot work, you cannot get on a plane, you cannot go visit your dying mother. Unless you allow us to inject you with this substance. That's Orwellian. That is Joseph Mengele. Eat Me writes, emotions don't care about facts. And Whale Oil Beef showed up, and I'm not saying his full name because I only just learned what whale oil beef hooked. If you say that fast, you'll know what that's how you learn to speak with an Irish accent. And Oilers fan writes, it made my blood boil when Palestinians were protesting and burning Canadian flags and said death to Canada and USA. Trudeau did nothing, but if a rainbow flag gets burned, the Liberals will stand up. Best comment. I'm going to give that one the comment of the night. Yeah, it made my blood boil too. And I know it's a tough issue. And I know that the images we're seeing, there are children being killed in Gaza, and that is heart-wrenching. But I would remind anyone, look into the war in Yemen, where it's reckoned over 250,000 children under the age of 5 have died. There's been a war raging for about 10 years. It's calmed down right now between this Iranian-backed group, the Houthis. Iran does not want peace in the Middle East. Iran does not want peace in the Middle East. If they were successful in eliminating the nation state of Israel, then they would want to impose their will across the broader Middle East, because they are Shia, and most of the Middle East, 75-80%, is Sunni, and they regard Sunni Islam as a false doctrine. They have the only true Islamic doctrine, the Ayatollahs in Iran. And this is this whole idea in Iran, if a woman goes out, she's not allowed to leave the house unless escorted by a male family member, and she has to have her face covered. And this is the group that is behind Hezbollah, the Houthis, Hamas, Islamic Jihad. This is the group that wants to eliminate the nation state of Israel. If that's what you want to support, fill your boots, but you're going to get, I'm not pulling any punches when it comes to, there is no peaceful solution. There is no two-state solution. The only solution for peace and prosperity in the Middle East is for a strong Israel. And we're coming to a big war, folks, a big war. And I've just spoken for over an hour about the Canadian political situation. It doesn't matter. The world doesn't give a tinker's damn about who the Prime Minister of Canada is. Big things are coming. And I haven't said it enough, but I always get back to Scripture And I'll tell you something, if you want to know what's coming, I would invite you to read Ezekiel. Read the prophet Ezekiel, chapter 36 to chapter 39, 36, 37, tell you where we've been, kind of give you a snapshot into how Israel came into being in 1948, 1949. And then that gets you caught up to where we are now. And then read 38, 39 to see what's coming at some point in the future. I'm not making predictions. I'm not saying it's happening in a few weeks, a few months, or even a year or two. Might be happening within the next year, might happen within 5, might happen within 20, maybe within 50, maybe 100, but it is coming. So I don't set dates. I don't say this is coming at this time, but it is coming. Same 36, 37, what Ezekiel predicted already happened in our, not my lifetime, but within the last 100 years. Let me read the last one. Amy has PTSD. She has PTSD from the COVID era, and we'll never let that go until the culprits are jailed. And Amy writes that it's the Saudis are the ones leading the strike against the Houthis. The Saudis back the, you got to understand, when we're dealing with the Arabian Peninsula, we're not dealing with democratic states. You know, the country of Jordan is ruled by the Hashemite dynasty. They're the king, and they're not even from Jordan. They're from the Arabian. They're Arabs. They're Arab immigrants. Jordan's a Palestinian country. Jordan was part of the original Palestinian mandate that Britain established in 1920, and they gave it to these Arabians and said, "You can run this." And so the reason that the Hashemites had to be given a new country, a new area, why they were given part of the Palestine to rule, is because they got kicked out of the Arabian Peninsula by the House of Saud, and the House of Saud is backing the government of Yemen, that royal family, and the Houthis are a group that are opposed. And the Houthis are financed by Iran. So Iran basically wants to destabilize the entire Middle East so that they can take over. Shia is only about 25% of the Arab world is Shia. The remainder is Sunni. And that's the main breakdown in the Islamic faith. And what if Israel, or if Iran achieved its goal of wiping Israel off the map, then there wouldn't be peace in the Middle East. There'd be, like what we've seen in Yemen, hundreds of thousands of people killed in that country. But no one cares about that because there are no Jews involved, and people hate Jews. There's a spirit of hatred toward the Jewish people and all things Jewish. It's a spirit of hatred there that's been around for over 3,000 years. Satan has always had his eye on the Jewish people and on the land of Israel. And there's a spirit of hatred there that it's satanic and it's evil. But people are so in deep with the enemy that they don't even recognize it. They think that Satan is light. They think Lucifer is the god of light. And that, if you're a Christian, you know who the light of the world is. Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." So anyway, Amy says, still a by proxy war it is. It's a proxy war. That's what we're always dealing with. You have this is the way for Saudi Arabia and Iran to fight each other, but rather than going at each other directly, they do it in Yemen, and they kill 400,000 people, and no one cares. Kill 250,000 little Yemeni children, that's fine, but if a dozen kids get hit because Hamas hides behind children, Hamas, they're cowards. They're hiding behind kids. They're hiding behind children. Well, they're martyred. And this is this dangerous, mindset that exists in so much of in too much of the Islamic world, this idea of martyrdom. And Eat Me believes Shia is more close to 10%. I think you're right in terms of the global population, but in the Middle East, when I'm talking about the Middle East, so I'm talking basically, Iran, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Lebanon. When I talk about the Middle East, I think it's about 25%. When you include the entire Islamic world, now we have to go into Pakistan. You got to go into Indonesia. Indonesia is the most populous, and that tips it. Shia is in the Middle East about 25%, and it's the predominating. Iran is the one country in the world where the Shia represent the majority. And Oilers fan writes, what the world needs now is Jesus. It does. Always has. Always has. This time is no different, but God is calling his people home. God is calling us. God gave them up. Read Romans, the beginning of Romans. God gave them up. God's saying, hey, you want to do what's right in your own eyes? Fill your boots. Let's see how it works out for you. And he's using these times to call his children home. And I implore you, if you recognize the evil in this world, if you recognize the direction in which we're going and can see, the perdition that we are heading toward, well, there is an ark, there is a rescue, there is salvation to be held. And it's not in this world, it's not of this world, it is Jesus Christ. Anyway, I'm going to leave you all now. May the Lord bless and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. And may the Lord grant you peace. And I know I talked for over an hour about Justin Trudeau and politics, but the most important person in this conversation, Jesus Christ. And he is the way, the truth, and the life. And don't look to anyone else for your salvation. So God bless, and we'll talk to you later. Night.